Welcome to episode 1013 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I'm Justin Mason, joined as always by Jason Collette. Jason, how you doing?
Happy Super Bowl Sunday. That means baseball's kicking. Oh crap. Yeah, I'm doing all right, man.
Yes,
Check out my new banner on my Twitter profile. That kind of sums up my feelings about baseball right now.
I'll have to go check that. Baseball usually is kicking off tomorrow, right? For the masses. We've been going nonstop, but it feels a little less immediate than it usually does. But joining us today is someone who's kicking something off that will be immediate tomorrow. Is the SPStreamer, Michael Simione from SPStreamer.com. Michael, welcome to the show.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Of course. I had to have you on because you are releasing your draft guide tomorrow, which I'm super excited about. I'm sure you are super excited about. So talk a little bit about what you can find in the SPStreamer draft guide.
Yeah, so it's out tomorrow on the website. Actually, I think I put it up there today, but whatever. I'm not announcing it till tomorrow, but it's there. I mean, it's we had a couple of writers involved in it, and it's all positional rankings with player blurbs. I can't talk today, apparently. We got top 100 prospects, a whole streaming strategy section, how to break down pitching, how to break down hitting, a whole starter spotlight section, which is basically like deep dives on some interesting starters. We have who we love and why, and that's basically deep dives on positional players. And then we have a whole draft strategy section that is 73 pages, I think, that talks about FAB, player evaluation, draft preparation, ADP, KDS, format strategy, managing your portfolio, and a bunch of other stuff. And then we have DFS section. There's a lot in there, basically.
There is a lot. And how much is it?
$5.
Yeah. See, people are like, oh, Justin, when's the Friends of Fantasy Benefits draft guide coming out this year? It's not. It was put out of business because it's undercut by the SP.
Don't say that.
It had nothing to do with the fact
$6 advice was undercut by $5 advice. There you go.
It had nothing to do with the fact that I just didn't want to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning every night until it was released. So
it is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a ton of work. You've assembled a pretty awesome team over at the SPStreamer to help you pump this out. So definitely go and get it. You're not going to find a cheaper draft guide on the market that offers so much stuff. So highly, highly recommend you go out and purchase that. It will help you win your leagues, which is the purpose of listening to a podcast like this, a podcast like Mike's, and getting a guide like that. So definitely go and support that. We are going to talk of some baseball, and we're going to focus on a bunch of questions we have gotten from people on Twitter. I didn't really know what to talk about today, and so I was feeling a little down after the news about the CBA yesterday, so I didn't feel like putting a ton of effort into it.
Clown show that was.
I'm like starting to lose hope a little, and I've been very positive, and now
I've been super optimistic, but that was a huge bummer to see. That's what the owners came back with. So,
and you know what? You know why they did it that way. Set the table, get it, and do nothing. And then what's all the talk about today? The Super Bowl. What's all the talk going to be about Monday? What happened in the Super Bowl? And so they get away with doing it the way they did it because of when they did it. And it's really annoying. And if you're not already following Eugene Friedman on Twitter, you need to, because I firmly believe he does the best job of trying to encapsulate everything we're experiencing with it. And when he called John Heyman MLB's personal mouthpiece, I lost it. I was just like, amazing. It's because it's so true. But you got to follow Eugene's recaps because he does a really good job. Not to discredit anybody else's work, but I find Eugene speaks in terms and phrases it the way I like to read it. You got to kind of follow it there. But the fact they did it when they did it, just kind of ridiculous. They're getting away with it.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the fact that they did it. I thought maybe, hey, they were going to do it because it's going to be such a great offer, the players would accept it, and it would try to overshadow, which would be stupid.
That's what I thought too.
And of course, no, it's the exact opposite reason. They want that story buried. I will say that it feels like MLB, the ownership, is losing the public war right now, because I don't think many people are really buying what the owners are putting down, and hopefully that will put enough pressure on them to make an actual deal. Let's jump into these questions, right? So we have a ton of questions from Twitter. I am live streaming this. Usually we only live stream it for the Patreon, but I figured it's a question episode. Live stream it out to anybody. If you have questions while we're on the air, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them towards the end. Let's start with the first one. It's from Mike Carter on Twitter, a good friend of ours. Who is one boring SP you like to target later? Also, who is one SP target in Dynasty you must have? You being the SPStreamer, and these are mostly pitching questions anyways. Go ahead, Michael. Start us off.
Yeah, so the boring SP that I've been targeting a lot is actually Ryu. I know he had a down season last year, but he played in a very difficult ballpark, which we all know. And he had it wasn't actually a high home run rate, but it was very high compared to his career average. And he doesn't typically let up that many home runs. So I really think that stadium kind of hurt him. And I think that's going to come back down below 1, which will really help that ERA drop again below 4. So I think you could get like a pitcher from him that could be like high 3 ERA, if anything. Hopefully he could stay healthy too. And then obviously he had that whole family issue too, where he said that he couldn't see his family. It really messed with him mentally. But now this season, they're actually going to be there with him, so that won't be an issue. So I think there was a lot there where it's kind of just an outlier season, in my opinion. I think that he should bounce back nicely.
Jason, who's one boring guy that you're drafting?
Andrew Heaney. Is he going to qualify for this?
Yeah,
I've done
sure.
3 drafts. I've done 3 DCs, and I've taken them in all 3. I took them at 25-3 in a 12-teamer. I took them at 18 in a 18 in the 18th round at both of my 15-team DCs. But I would have said Ryu as well, because I agree with everything Michael said, because I took Ryu for and one of the other ones for the same types of reasons with that. But I would say Heaney only because I'm 3 for 3 in taking him. So he's an old boring guy. But the other one that I've seen come up targeting wise, and not that I targeted him, but I was very happy to see him hanging around the 14th round with Sonny Gray. Because we don't know where things are going to be in Cincinnati, but I took him to lead off the 14th round in one of my other DC there, and I was just really surprised he was there, because that's the league I went pocket aces for the first time. I took Woodruff and Bueller right out of the gate, and then didn't take another starter until I picked up Gray in the 14th round. And so felt better about, because I've never tried the strategy, but figure 15th, let me see how I can build the team out. And I'm feeling better about this team as I'm going on, but getting a guy like Gray in the 14th certainly made me feel better about going 2 starters and then going 3 relievers because Kimbrel had fallen into the 12th and I couldn't pass that up either. So took me to the 14th round to get my 3rd starter, but it's working.
I feel like Gray is almost like Ray last year. I mean, not to the extent, but he's going later, where he has the past 3 seasons, he's had a high strikeout rate. And it's kind of, I'm perplexed as to why he's going where he's going, because I feel like even if he, I guess, doesn't perform that well, he still is going to get you those strikeouts. And I kind of feel like that's what Ray was last year. Yeah. So I feel like he's a really good buy right now, based on ADP.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit deeper because you guys took mine, because I wanted to talk about both those guys. And I don't want to talk about Steven Matz again, even though I will be taking Steven Matz like in every draft I'm in this year at the price. Let's talk about Cole Irvin, who is going like after pick 500, in which all at that point you want is someone who can maybe go 120 innings. And he went like 170 last year. And for the most part, we're pretty good until he completely fell apart. But I think a lot of people I think we can blame, going from the shortened season to the longer season on that. Pitches in a great ballpark. It seems like the A's are going to be pretty bad, so the win potential is going to be pretty bad. But if you're just looking for innings in a DC, Cole Irvin going outside the top 500 is way too good of a deal to pass up. He's just going to accumulate strikeouts very, very slowly, but throughout the season. So
I'm assuming Caprillian's in the same range. No,
I think Caprillian's going a little bit higher.
Okay.
Caprillian is going 150 picks higher. He's going at 345. I like Caprillian, but I'll take Cole Irvin 150 picks later. If that's what I'm looking for, or get both. I'm not opposed to getting both. What about a dynasty must-have? Is there a dynasty must-have starting pitcher for you? I'll go first on this one. Actually, no, there is no dynasty must-have pitcher. The life of a pitcher is short usually, right? It's not as long as a hitter. There's no such thing for me as a dynasty must-have pitcher. Especially if you're in any sort of rebuilding phase, it's always about building up my hitting and then figuring out the pitching later. So for me, there's no such thing as a dynasty must-have pitcher. Simione, is there?
I mean, I so when I saw this question, I don't play dynasty. I actually just joined my first dynasty league this year. So I like didn't really know what route to go with this. I mean, I feel like there's the obvious, like Shane Baz. I mean, the guy's going to be a stud. But I mean, that was all I really thought about. It was like the young guys that are like obvious, you know what I mean? Because I'm not too keen on minor leaguers, to be honest with you.
That's fair. Jason, do you have a must-have dynasty starting pitcher?
Yeah, I take the same approach as you all. I tend to. In my younger days, I was all about chasing the high upside arm, and I have learned not to do that anymore. I will tell you, in my local AL only league, where we have 17 reserve spots, I used 16 of them on major league reserves or hitting prospects. I used one spot on a pitching prospect. And I'll recommend the same. And he wasn't even on an organization. He was still in college. And I used this one spot on this one guy, and it worked because the Angels drafted him. And that's Sam Bachman. So Sam Bachman from the Angels is the only pitching prospect I currently have on my team. But I really like Sam Bachman. He's the number 2 prospect in the Angels organization. He's right there with Reed Detmers. Is he going to be a reliever or a starter? I don't know, but he's got really nice stuff. And from what I saw pitch in college and what I read, I wanted to take a chance. So that's the one guy. If you're looking for somebody more major league ready in that regard, we've talked about him on this podcast a few times, but I'm still a really big Josiah Gray fan and want to see him just really take a big step forward this year in Washington.
I've been getting a lot of Josiah Gray this year. I'm excited for his first full season in the majors. So.
Yeah, those breaking balls look really good.
If he can just keep the ball in the yard, we're gonna have a really, really good pitcher. All right, the next question is, what SP going after pick 600? So this is for either mono league players or for draft and hold people once you're getting really late in the draft. Are you targeting? Jason, who you got? And this is from Drew is okay on Twitter.
Wow, that's really late. So one guy that I'm still looking back at some of the ones I've done, I'm looking at 2 guys in particular that I've taken late. Miguel Yajure with Pittsburgh and Michael Lorenzen from the Angels. And I know it's weird to say Lorenzen starter, but that's what he's signed for this year. And you go back, he wanted to do this last year, got hurt, and that's been the problem with Lorenzen, his ability to stay healthy, despite him, just being a physical freak. But I took him in the 49th round, took him 49-3 is where I took him. I took Yajure 47-3. But those are 2 arms that I was looking at later. But of the 2, give me Lorenzen because we've seen what he can do. And the Angels are a good situation. Yajure, it's everything you laid out about Cole Irvin could be the same thing. He could give you the innings, but it's going to be everything else is going to be tough just because it's Pittsburgh. So I was really happy to get a guy like Lorenzen in the 49th round of a 15-team DC. All right, that was a 12-team DC. Sorry, so barely That wouldn't even be 600, but it was close enough. How's that?
There's not many guys you're going to find as starting pitcher after 600. This was a really difficult question. There was only one guy I could even notice that I've drafted regularly. Michael, who's your guy post 600?
I was going to go with Griffin Canning.
Nice.
I thought, well, at least when I looked at the ADP, he was past 600. But yeah, I mean, I know he got sent down. I was actually kind of surprised when they did that. But I think something was maybe going on with him. Maybe he's a little injured or something. But both of his breaking pitches are pretty good. I mean, the slider had a swing strike percentage over 19%, the changeup over 18%. So I feel like he just has a lot of whiff capability, and I feel like he will somehow work his way back into that rotation. And we're talking about post 600 here. So even if he only sees like 50 innings, but, you know, at least he get you some strikeouts, I think he's a decent grab there.
Yeah. Justin, go to your guy, because I do have a name. I feel obligated to give somebody outside the top 600. But, you know, I got close, but I do have another name. But go ahead and do yours before I do mine.
You do yours, because I've got three guys I could talk about. So.
All right. The one guy, and this guy's ADP, as I'm looking here, is like 711. So it's Corbin Martin with Arizona. You know, he was the key part of the Zach Greinke trade. Even though he was hurt at the time of the trade, he had Tommy John surgery 3 weeks before he was traded, but they still wanted him. He is now 2+ years removed from that surgery, because he had a surgery early July of 19. You know, last year gave up 12 home runs in 43 innings. That was brutal. Couldn't control, but that's what you expect from a guy coming back from Tommy John, who also had his rehab interrupted by not having anywhere to pitch. And so with him, you look at his stuff pre-injury, he had 4 pitches that were graded average to slightly above average, profiled as a number 3 starter. I believe there's going to be opportunity for him in Arizona at some point this year. You know, the rotation, we'll see what happens with the pitching coach change. But, you know, they added Dan Straley to the back end of that rotation. So I don't know if he's got a path right out of the gate, but you know, we're talking a draft and hold. You can find a spot on your roster in the 49th or 50th round for Martin and see how that plays out. But, you know, before the injury, he was a highly valued guy, and we've kind of forgotten about him because of what's happened the last 2 years with the injury, and then what he did last year, just giving up home runs every 5th batter.
There you go. That was one of the guys that I had marked down. The other 2 guys, one is someone who is locked into a rotation spot, at least as it sits right now. Not the most amazing skills in Paulo Espino, but it's a decent park. And you know, he showed some flashes that he might be serviceable, and that's what we're talking about. And we're going after pick 600. Another guy is, well, actually another 2 guys are 2 guys that have shown flashes of greatness, but have warts. One is Matt Boyd, going like around pick 680 something. If he's healthy,
the Boyd boys.
When's he supposed to come back?
Who knows? Like, we have no information. Like, he didn't get surgery, so I mean, who knows? Maybe he's good. Maybe he does. You know, he pitches well this year, doesn't end up needing surgery. Maybe he blows up right when he, you know, throws his first pitch in spring training. But I mean, when you're going as late as he is, you're not going to find that much upside that late in the draft. So I think worth the gamble if you haven't added a lot of injured guys or prospects to your team in a draft and hold. The other is Garrett Richards. I've always been a Garrett Richards guy. I until the day he says he's done, I will go back to the well on that, at least in one draft a year. So who knows where he's going to be, if he's going to be a starter or a reliever. But he did finish the season.
Hasn't he kind of answered that question, though? He's a reliever.
I think he should be. I think he should be given a high leverage reliever role, but I don't know. You know, pitchers want to get paid as a starter. So they're gonna try to start for.
Pitchers also have to pitch to get paid.
This is true.
Actually, no, they don't. They just have to pitch once, get hurt, and they still get paid. So
Garrett Richards has done that.
Yeah. My point is, much like Lamet, same kind of thing. We've seen a profile. The stuff can play up in short spurts, but you have trouble staying healthy. Then there's a role for you. Remember, Brad Lidge came up as a starter. He was Billy Wagner never got hurt, but he was used as a starter. I mean, these guys, that used to be the old path, is you're a starter until you show you that you're not anymore, either by a lack of a third pitch or a well-rounded repertoire or health concerns. And in Richard's case, it's pretty clear where he belongs.
Absolutely. All right. The next question is another one from Mike Carter. He says, "Are there places where it's inappropriate to stream?" We're gonna try to stick to fantasy baseball content here and not go.
Is there a context behind that? Did somebody stream from the bathroom?
I don't know.
I didn't quite understand what this question was.
So why don't we just go into your Michael? You are the SP streamer. You write streaming articles I think daily, right, at SPStreamer. Yeah. So why don't you talk about your process in how you identify a streaming pitcher, and are there times, because like I do streaming articles over Fangraphs, and there are times where I go, there is no one worth streaming today, because and people are like, oh, who's your guy? Like, no, I'm not gonna put a crappy guy into my lineup. So what is your process, and then are there times where it's just not worth it?
Yeah, can you hear my dog, by the way? He's
like, I can. That's okay.
I apologize. I just texted my wife. I was like, you need to get him to stop, please. Obviously there are points where, like you said, I mean, I force myself to pick every day because you never know when someone needs to do it. And, there are days where it's just no good option at all. I found last season, more so than anything, that looking at a pitcher's numbers is a little more important than opponents. And, I really like to look at like the last 3 starts where a pitcher, their K-walk percentage was hot, spiking up, or their velocity was going up as well. So I like to target those pitchers who are coming off these hot 3 starts, and they tend to perform better, and continue that, keep that going. Plus it can also help you, spot guys who are breaking out as well. So that's a benefit as well from it.
Jason, what's your kind of process in terms of how you stream? And then are you sometimes just avoiding the process altogether?
My process is normally reading other people's advice on this because, quite honestly, I do a weekly piece, so I don't dive into the daily. But I will take a look, as if I'm sitting down to, especially if I'm doing DFS, try to take a. This is Mike was saying, looking at the most recent, like not the last start, but the last 3, and then try to look at different input points to decide, okay, this is where I'm going to go with it. But if I see, especially if I'm reading something that somebody else has advised, and I'm like, I want to dive into those numbers. I like when I read something that challenges my point of view, or like, why would I touch that guy? Oh, okay, that makes sense. So I that's why I enjoy reading other people's inputs to see where things are, because I'm more of a weekly guy. I don't do daily things, but if I am sitting down on Sundays to figure out how I'm going to do my lineup, I mean, those are some of the inputs I look at. Obviously it's, it's 2-start week, and where I'm going to take a guy out. Is that 1 start that good where I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to leave him in, even though I have a 2-start option. It used to be like, I'm going to throw a 2-start guy in there because it's 2 starts, but no, I've learned that lesson too. That's the great thing about this sport. It humbles you sometimes. So it's really, sometimes it's worth it's quality versus quantity.
And no matter what, you're going to run into those blowups too. It's just going to happen. And as Justin knows, because me and Justin kind of talked throughout the season, because he was doing it, I was doing it, and we're like looking at each other's numbers kind of, and like, it was weird. The same month, like we both had a terrible month. And it's just sometimes, no matter how much effort and data you put into it, baseball is so unpredictable. And if all these pitchers are getting lit up, then your numbers aren't going to be good. And it doesn't matter who you choose sometimes. So it's really tough. It's a very hard thing to do.
It was funny too, because the month, I believe, was June. You would think it would be like April, or you would think it would be like September, pitchers are tiring out, things, but it was like, it was right in the middle where we have enough information where it should be easier for us to kind of make the decision. But I just got shellacked. Like, it was my only month where I had like an ERA over, 4 over, and just, it happens, like Mike said. my process is kind of like a Venn diagram, right? I look at the matchups, and then I look at the pitchers I like, and I see where those kind of intersect.
Right.
I am very cautious, though. One of the things I don't want to do is force it, because there's nothing worse than having to work off the bad stream you just had. And so I think often people, especially in points leagues and head-to-head formats, they really want to force it. You force it when you have to, right? Like if you're on a Sunday, you need 8 strikeouts. You're like, okay, well, these 2 guys are going into my lineup, even though they suck. But if you're playing early in the week, you're playing, early in the season in Roto, like there's no reason to force it. And put a bad streamer out there just to have someone. I'd much rather stream a reliever, that I feel more confident in. Hey, he may only get an inning, but at least it'll be a good inning, as opposed to streaming. I'm trying to think of a good example of a bad
Cole.
I was gonna screw you. I was gonna say Trevor Williams, like in a
Steven
bad spot. How dare you?
Even Matt.
No, I mean, and to your point though, it's like there's the funnel, right? In the beginning of the year, you're like you're more likely to take changes. Yeah, well, you're more likely to take chances because you're wide open. And then as you get closer to the finish line, then it comes down to your inputs. It's like, I'm trying to chase strikeouts, but it's there's this movement here, and so you're less willing to take chances the closer you are towards the end of the season, because you can see the finish line, especially in some of those tight situations with it. Whereas, like, do you weigh the chance of a blow up? Like, let's say, like using last year. Okay, Desclafani's got that outing against the Dodgers. I need 6 strikeouts, but oh my God, it's the Dodgers, and he's been blown up twice. And I know there was one outing last year where he survived the outing against the Dodgers. There was one, but the other 2 were atrocious. And there's probably some people listening going, "Yep, I lost that week in a head-to-head because I sat him because of that." Or somebody's like, "Yeah, I ended up winning that week because I took the chance," and he was able to survive that outing after getting blown up by him the previous times. So I get it. It just as you get towards the end of the season, sometimes you're very narrow in your choices, and other times you're like, I don't care, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And sometimes you get rewarded for that, and sometimes you get punished pretty hardly. Hardly. Ugh.
One of the things that I like to focus on with my streaming early on in the season is protecting my ratios. And so like I want to try to set as good of a foundation base, and we're talking about in a Roto league. So like if you're early on in the season, like I'm gonna, I might avoid the big strikeout guys that have really high volatility and giving up home runs or walking a lot of guys, just because I want to set that really strong foundation for my ratio, so that way if I do need strikeouts later, I can stream the hell out of guys and just pump guys in and hope that it's not going to tank my ratios that I've built up.
See, I took Brad Keller though, thinking that same thing the first week, and he got destroyed by the Rangers. So
yeah, he didn't get out. He didn't get out. He had 5 runs, no outs, 5 runs.
I think that was my first stream of the year, and that was great.
Mine was.
I remember that outing. Yeah, well, he was against Kyle Gibson. Neither guy made it out.
Yes,
the first
and Gibson got rocked also.
Yep. Yeah, mine was Mike Minor going up against Texas, which didn't end super well either. So, and hopefully you don't have to stream so much early on in the season, outside of your head-to-head formats, because you want a little base of information before and spring training is not information.
Well, sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to, though, because you do that smart strategy where you take a pitcher that is going to be injured to start the season. Like if you think because I see it often in tout and labor where somebody will take that guy, take a pitcher late in the game that they know is going to miss first couple of weeks. Go ahead and take them anyhow, and then you have like 3 guys in your reserve list that you're gonna spin in and be like, okay, I'm gonna take a chance with this guy, take a chance with this guy, take a chance with this guy. So sometimes you do have to do it right out of the gate because you've made the play where I'm gonna take a guy that I know is not gonna be ready to start the season. I would this year I would use Jameson Taillon as an example. If we start the season on time, it's unlikely he will start the season on time as he recovers from his ankle surgery. So, what do you do if you take Tyon late in the game, you're able to get him on a discount because other people are like, I'll let somebody else take the chance. Okay, fine, I'll take him. Now I've got to build out my strategy for the first couple of weeks to cover while he's out. And you may have to start a Brad Keller, and maybe that's what happens to you on opening day. But Brad Keller was my 50th round selection in one of my DCs, just to put him in perspective. Round 50, there he was.
There you go. I'm just looking at my results. I had a really good year. I'm proud of myself. 3.829 ERA, 1.19 WHIP in almost 500 innings and 463 strikeouts for the season. So I'll take that.
I do not know what mine is.
You didn't keep track?
I did. It's somewhere, and I'm trying to look for it. I can't find it. I know I have it somewhere.
You've got like 700 pages of a draft guide blocking up your computer right now. I think this next question is for Michael. What's in the mug?
It depends on the day. It's sometimes it's coffee and sometimes it's tea. I like I usually go with a black tea.
Okay. This is a reference for those who don't know. Michael does did you know segments on TikTok, and I think you put them on Twitter too.
I put them on Twitter,
yeah. He puts them on Instagram too.
Instagram. I put them everywhere.
So it's some interesting information you may not have known, but he always takes at least one, sometimes two sips of his mug, and there has been some questions to whether or not there's actually anything in that mug.
I have shown to the camera once that there actually is, in fact. But maybe I'll just start drinking from a clear Mason jar like this, and then this way people could see.
I highly recommend anything with the name Mason in it. So
see, there's just coffee in this one, in my awesome Ron Swanson Pyramid of Greatness mug. Big fan of the Four Sigmatic coffee, and so that's what's in this mug, because we record midday. I do tea at night, but big fan of the Four Sigmatic coffee.
For those wondering, I drink Rockstar Recoveries, so the orange variety, or I'm drinking water. My child yesterday, my eldest, 11 years old, asked my wife, apparently, like, do all adults drink coffee? And neither my wife or I drink coffee, so they have never seen us drink coffee. And my wife kind of looked at them kind of a little like weirdly, like, I don't drink it. Goes, oh, your coffee is Scotch. Wow. And then apparently my coffee is podcasting. So this is my coffee. It's early in the morning. That's I guess how I wake up. But I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah.
That is pretty funny.
Who is your favorite late round flyer? That's from @Son of Marlins Man. Jason, who you got? Who's your favorite late round flyer?
Favorite late round flyer. What are we talking late round? Are we talking reserve? I don't want to use the same.
Let's say after round. Yeah, I'd say after round 23.
Okay, because what I'm trying to do is avoid using the same kind of names that we have on other ones. Like it's been frequently stated how much I do like Cesar Hernandez as a late round flyer this year. So that one, I don't want to repurpose that one. So I'm trying to look back at some of the other ones that I've looked at that make interesting. So at catcher, Cal Raleigh, because I really believe in the power upside there. Tom Murphy. I know there's a crowd there around him with Tom Murphy and Luis Torrens, but I believe Cal Raleigh has the highest upside offensively of that group. And so I have taken him in one league already. Wouldn't mind having him in more. And then I would say another one staying on the catcher theme, because he doesn't qualify catcher, is Matt Thaiss. He is, or Thaiss, however you want to pronounce his name. Is it Rasmussen? Anyhow, because Matt Thaiss is at first base, but he's going to catch this year. And so I took him in round 46 of one of my DCs as my 5th first baseman, but my 4th catcher. And so I'm very intrigued there, especially with the way catchers are playing out. If you're looking for a non-catcher name with that, and a name that we have not discussed here on this podcast, I took another late dart on who's the other late dart I took? I took a late dart on Kyle Isbell in Kansas City. So that's another one I would give. I know they're all AL guys. Sorry, but that's where I am.
Simeone, who are some of your late round targets?
Yeah, I kind of just went to the teams I have now and looked at, who I have a lot of shares of that have been basically bench players. So I went with 2 pitchers. I mean, I've only done DCs. So one important thing, obviously, is innings pitched. And I feel like Kyle Freeland is just going really late, and he's going to get you a ton of innings. And he does go on those crazy stretches where he pitches very well, even in cores. So if you could catch those 2, that'll help you. And then the other one is just Luke Weaver. I just like him because he has the history. He did have, one really good season. I do like the cutter, plus the new pitching coach is coming in, so maybe he can unlock something there with Luke Weaver.
There you go. I just pulled up my team player shares page over on NFBC and kind of looking at some of the guys I've been grabbing a lot. Kyle Finnegan, I think there's a legitimate shot he's the closer to start the season. I've talked a lot about him. Cole Tucker is a guy going super, super late. If he can find a full-time role, he could be something really special, especially in the speed department. Brett Sutter is a guy that he's a relief pitcher, and he had like 10 or 11 wins last year. So, when you're go ahead.
I was going to say in our membership Discord, there's this one member who's obsessed with him. And I got him a cameo from him.
Nice.
It was pretty funny. He was, because I said in there, I said he always says that you're going to win Cy Young, and in the video he's like, I don't know if a middle relief pitcher's ever won Cy Young, but I appreciate the compliment.
Other guys, Victor Robles going pretty late. Bobby Bradley, if you need power late, is a guy that I think he's gonna. The Guardians have said he's going to be the full-time first baseman to start the year. So
that's not a great lineup, man. I was looking at them yesterday.
It's not.
No, it's not.
Wow. I mean, even if you try to platoon things, you try to look at platoon situation, like, yuck. If you want to believe, we have to hope that Josh Naylor can bounce back from his surgery to basically have his ankle reattached after breaking it. Because, I mean, he's only 25 or turning 26 this year. You want to believe in the upside. But that team outside of Jose Ramirez, like, if I'm them, I trade him for the farm, literally somebody's farm system. Like, here, you want him, I want these guys because they need a reset, because it is after you get past the top 4, it's like
I would not be surprised if they try to move him. Bradley Zimmer on that list, Nick Martinez on that list, Chris Stratton on that list, Michael Lorenzen. As much as I've given you hate, I've gotten him late in a bunch of leagues this year on 50% of my drafted teams.
Because you're afraid he's going to kick your ass. I mean,
no, because there's no price attached, and like you said, he's going to start this year. So, I think this. So
the Angels are paying Thor $21 million this year, and they're paying Lorenzen $8 million. And it's like, to me, this is Lorenzen hand. Give me Lorenzen as much as possible, based on, because somebody was asking me the other day, like, what do you think Thor pitches? Do you think he can get the 160? And I laughed. I'm like, no. I know they're only paying him for 1 year, but to me, I've said 170 is a new 200, so 160 is like the new 180. No. But Lorenzen, what I want to see is, you mentioned Mike Minor earlier, but who am I think? CJ. You remember when CJ Wilson made the jump from the bullpen to the starting rotation? And had that one good right out of the year. Like, he started training for that the season before. So when he hit, he made the transition right over and did well that first year. It's like, that's what I want to see out of Lorenzen. I want to see this stuff play up, and I want to see him take on the workload, and I want to see his body hold up and not fail him again.
Richard Sands in the chat letting us know it was 12 wins for Sutter last year. it was awesome. It was great to have him on a number of teams. And just
it was unlike Yusmeiro Petit, who had 7 wins in 5 weeks and then had 2 more the rest of the year.
Yeah.
He had 7 wins going into mid-May, and then he
I know, I had
remember
Petit,
that.
yeah, I had a Petit on a lot of teams. So, all right, let's see. Another question that's a little bit off the wall from Matt Williams on Twitter. Why do you hate pancakes there, Michael Simione?
There's actually a story behind it. So, like, you know, like in college when you drink and like you drink that one liquor that like sets you over the edge and you can't like go near it again because like you threw up from it or something. Yeah. So when I was like middle school, I want to say,
you drank in middle school.
I had pancakes and I got really, really sick from it. And ever since then, I just like could never look at them again.
Were they homemade or were they from a restaurant?
No, they were homemade.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea if there was even like any relation there, like if it even was the pancakes, but I can't do it. I can't look. Every time I look at them and just see their texture, I just like no.
So when we were in FPAS together, a bunch of us went out to breakfast. Yes. Like 10 of us went out to breakfast.
You all tortured me.
And Mike Curlin ordered their pancake special. And no joke, this thing was the size of an extra large pizza. And there were 2 of them. They give you a pizza box to take it home in. And they have to cut it in half first so they can fit it inside this large pizza box. So that must have been torture.
Yeah, I just keep it to myself.
Okay. You did a good job because
I can't tell people don't order something. I just focus on my food.
I'll tell you, I have my similar is what's it? The roast beef, not the French dip. Anything French dip.
I love French dip.
See, I was in middle school. Very similar story. I was in middle school. I want to say Dad took us to Arby's or some kind of spinoff, some kind of Arby's in Texas, and I remember eating French dip sandwich, and it was no. And so I cannot eat French dip to this day. I can't touch it.
There you go.
I have no food or drink like this. Yeah. But then again, I'm a recovering alcoholic for a reason because I like things too much. So
that was my dog. I just farted.
Sure was.
That's why you saw me look. I'm like, what?
All right, let's move on and let's talk about the NLDH, but for pitchers. So does the NLDH mean more pitchers could earn quality starts instead of being pulled early? And that's from @Hardball on Twitter. Jason, what are your thoughts on this? You think it means that we're going to see NL pitchers get more quality starts?
No, I don't. There's Todd Zola's got a good piece up at RotoWire about the impact of the universal DH on that. But I honestly don't, because the research doesn't change. If anything, I think it impacts a little more, pardon me, because maybe the NL manager's like, oh, I don't have to pitch it. I'm going to go ahead and leave this guy out here for the 3rd time through in the heart of the lineup. Instead of that decision being made for them, they're like, oh, he's going to hit second this inning. I'm going to go ahead and take him out. Now they may be more willing to leave the guy out there, and it could hurt. Maybe they get an extra strikeout, but maybe they could also lose that. So getting the 6th inning part isn't what I'm concerned about. It's the earned run requirement of that particular piece is where I'm concerned, because you're going to see a little more exposure to it. And Todd's article talks about the difference. It's been about a quarter run difference between the 2 leagues, if I'm recalling correctly on this. It's been about a quarter run difference in things. But then you also have to consider the impact of strikeouts as well on these pitchers, because 44% of 46% of pitcher plate appearances were ending in strikeouts. So those are going away. Now you're not going from 46 to 0. You're going from 46 to probably mid-20s. So, but you have to adjust that as well with some of these pitchers. But it is nice to go into draft season and not have to worry, oh, am I taking an AL or an NL pitcher? You're taking a pitcher and not having to worry about the differences of that. Because there have been times where I've walked out of a mixed draft. I'm like, ooh, I've got 6 American League pitchers. Yikes. Didn't mean to do that, because just pitcher is a pitcher is a pitcher. I'm not taking league context into mind. But factor in those things. Go check out Todd's piece.
Simione, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I I mean, I don't have the mathematic capability as Tazola, but yeah, I mean, I just thought off the top of my head, I mean, yeah, sure, they might be left in, but then they're also facing an actual hitter instead of pitchers, which could, I guess 3 times instead of 3 pitchers. So I feel like that could obviously affect them too, and how long they last in games also. So I basically agree with everything Jason was saying.
Yeah. What I wish that Fangraphs had quality starts as a stat listed on their site. But what they do have is I could sort the leaderboard by league stats, by American League and National League, and look how many innings pitched starters through in 2021. And there is a difference of about 40 innings between the American League starters and National League starters last year. So that's it. 40 innings out of 12, over 12,000 innings in total each league. So 24,000 total innings. So there isn't much of a difference. I don't think this is, I think there's obviously going to have an effect on starting pitchers not being able to face the pitcher in the National League, and you're going to lose some strikeouts there. But yeah, there may be some anecdotal evidence that, certain pitchers on certain teams get a little bit more. So teams maybe in the National League that were very, very quick to pull the trigger. I'm thinking like the Giants, a team that like to do a lot of double switches and bring guys in and play matchups. Maybe on the Giants, there's a little bit of added boost for guys like Alex Wood or Anthony DeSclafani. But I think overall, it's probably not going to have as big of an impact as we'd like to see.
No.
So I'm staring at a board. I sent you a link in private chat, Justin, that you can include in the show notes. So I'm staring at a board that said the league average for quality starts last year for a team was 53. Was the league average. The high end was Oakland at 76, and the low end was Pittsburgh at 25. Yes, Baltimore had more quality starts than Pittsburgh had last year. But number two was the Dodgers at 74. Number 3 was the Brewers at 70. Number 4 was the Reds at 68. Number 5 was the Rockies at 68. So National League was already getting quality starts. They were already getting the volume. Now, the percentage-wise, the league-wide percentage was 33%, and all those teams were above 42%. So they were already getting the quality starts in this capacity. So maybe it's the other way. Maybe they're going to get fewer now. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe they're going to lean on the bullpen. But when I'm looking at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was NAL, then the Atlanta, then the Astros, then the Giants. So we're talking 7 of the top 9 or 6 of the top 9 were already National League teams.
Yeah, I think that brings up an interesting point, because you have to remember, in order to, usually when you're bringing in a reliever in the National League, you're doing it so that way you can hit for the pitcher, right? And you're having to burn a member of your bench in order to do so. So maybe teams are more aggressive because they're not having to worry about burn, a person on that bench.
They're carrying 13-man, the 8-man bullpens.
Yeah.
They can do it.
That's a really interesting point. I will include that link in the show notes for everyone. A really good question. Thank you. I like that one. Pick 3 pitchers going outside the top 50 that could potentially finish inside the top 25 there, Michael.
Yeah, I assume they meant top 50 SPs, right? Not overall. I'm guessing.
I believe they did.
Okay.
When is NFBC going to fix that so we can sort by pitcher type? It's really brutal. Getting annoying.
I know. It's like, it makes no sense to me. I am going to. So I picked 3. One was Zach Gallen, just because I think if he's healthy, he could be a monster of a pitcher. Sonny Gray, who we already discussed, because I like the high strikeout rate. It's just a matter of him being healthy too and getting the innings. And then I don't believe it, but he's going so late where it definitely is a possibility if he's fully healthy, and clearly Clayton Kershaw. If he could pitch the whole year, there's no doubt he could be top 25.
Yeah, I think those are some good calls. Jason, you got 3?
So what I'm going to do for loose rule of thumb here is I'm going to look at pitchers outside the top 65, because I'm figuring 50 starting pitchers and 15 relievers, because that feels like how the market. And so trying to avoid names we've already discussed, which takes off Sonny Gray for me, because I've spoken often about him. Jordan Montgomery takes away Sandoval. You and Paul have talked about him enough. You talked about him at length, even in the last episode. We've already talked about Ryu. You guys also talked about Joe Ryan. You're eliminating a lot of my choices here, to be honest with you. But I will say, because I've only been able to get him in one league, and I still want more shares. I still want Tristan McKenzie, only as somebody with the skills. He's one skill away. And if he can get better command, because the league really struggled to hit his non-fastballs. And if he can get ahead in counts and use those, he could take a significant jump forward quickly. And so I really do like him. So I'm going to use him, even though we've talked about him a couple of times on this. I'm trying to find some other guys that get using without using some of the other guys that we've already discussed. That's the struggle. There's been so many names. Michael Kopech, because I'm going to believe that he's going to hold up workload wise. And then finally, I will throw another dart at a name we haven't used. Wow, this gets tough. Jesus Luzardo. Deep dart, because he's way down there. He's 1/12 on the pitcher list. A list of pitchers, not pitcher list. I'm not blaming the site. But again, I want to see him continue to build off how he closed the season last year with that. So those are three names I'll give.
All right. You guys took a lot of mine. Sonny Gray's a guy like I've really turned around on kind of in draft season, where I went, I've got him way too low. He's going way too low in drafts. Kopech is a guy that is really, really interesting to me. I think it depends a lot about what his workload's going to be. Obviously, all the TJ returnee guys, right? They're all former studs in their own right. Syndergaard, Clevenger, Verlander's not going late, but Severino, like they're all studs. I just tend to not draft those guys in their first season back, so I won't be drafting them. Other guys that I think have some really interesting upside. We talked about Hyunjin Ryu. He's going outside top 50 starters. Alex Wood is a guy that, again, health piece. If he can stay healthy for a full season, I could see him having another a top 25 like year in San Francisco.
I guess Wainwright could.
Yeah, I mean, he just did.
Yeah.
So he was I'm pretty sure he was a top 25 starter.
So I got one for both of you guys on the heels of something Eno wrote recently, talking about pitchers' potential rebounds, and Justin, close to home for you with Madison Bumgarner. He led off the piece. He talked about four guys, and he said how whose stuff that he was had a stuff plus piece. Talking about how some guys were recovering late in the year, and he led off with Bumgarner, talking particularly the curveball. But right now, Bumgarner's ADP is 446. He's 176 pitcher. He's got as high as 301 with that. And I know, last year was ugly. And even the projections, most of them have his ERA over 5. But Eno's a market mover. The piece really lays out why go back another chance. I'll be transparent and say that I considered it because that was part of the research. I considered it because I just, while we were here on the air, made some selections, but at the turn of the 21st and the 22nd, but I took Josiah Gray because I already said he was one of the guys I really liked, and I took him there, but I let Bumgarner go, but I did consider him here at this spot, but I took Gray and Cesar Hernandez because I needed a middle infielder with that spot as well. But I'm curious about where you guys are on Bumgarner making a bounce back. Not as a top 25 guy. I think those days are over, but how much more willing are you to add him to your roster without even having read stuff, just understanding that his stuff plus really improved over the final couple of months?
I don't know if I would consider him. I don't think I see him having a bounce back. I guess I don't see him going some 40, right? But I do like him for draft champions because the innings, I figure he could easily get 170, 180 innings. And we did see the velocity come back up a little bit too. Again, new pitching coach, maybe he could figure something out with him. I do have several shares of him though, because again, if you need a guy who's going to get you innings at that, price point, he's the guy to go to.
To be honest, I'd have to go back and watch some starts. And so I watched his last start. It was against the Giants. And it was the last time Buster Posey and Madison Bumgarner were going to get to face. So, I watched that one. I did not come away overly impressed, by his in zone command. And I mean, for Bumgarner to be successful, he has to have that in zone command. It's the thing that's been missing, kind of from his arm since that ATV accident, is his ability to hit spots within the zone. So I'll go back and watch a few starts. Love love his work. He's really, really good at what he does. So I'll go back and I'll go back and maybe watch his last month of starts and see if I see what his model is putting out there. Because I would be interested if he's back to having the in zone command we saw in San Francisco, then I think he can be very, very successful in a place like Arizona, which is a great place to pitch. So, but okay. I gotta go watch it. Like I think numbers miss on guys like him. The same way that numbers miss on another guy who could be one of those top 25 guys, because he's been a top 25 guy in the past, going super late, in Kyle Hendricks. I haven't drafted Kyle Hendricks because I really need to see something from, how he works within the zone. But that's another one of those guys that could jump up.
Well, I think the thing too is that the change of the ball, I just feel like it hurt all of these command guys. So hopefully MLB doesn't do that ever again and like change it several times in the season without telling anyone.
Well, and the lack of sticky stuff when you're relying upon, pinpoint placement, and you go from being able one day to be able to use the sticky stuff and the next day not, like, of course there's going to be slippage. And we talked about this a lot coming into 2021, even before we knew they were going to change the ball midseason or eliminate sticky stuff, is that those guys have a smaller margin for error, right? And if anything goes wrong, it could be disastrous, and that's what it was for Hendricks.
You can't fix that, in a start. I'm trying to believe, I'm trying to remember. Even Eno said, it took Bummy a little bit to get that back, and he showed a graph. And we've had the conversation about how Garrett Cole took some time to adjust, and that's like the best guy. If a guy at that caliber is going to take like 4 to 6 starts to reset his process, it's going to take some other guys longer. And that's where I'm really curious to see how these guys come out and pitch this year when we get to see him pitch, because they've now had off season to adjust, try to work on some things, and we'll see how, if they look at it and say, you know what, I can't throw that pitch anymore. That's going away. I'm going to add this. Or now that I know how the ball feels, I know how I need to manipulate it. Like, I really enjoyed, Pitching Ninjas videos. We talked with Marcus Stroman about how he throws 4 different types of fastballs and what he does with them. And then Kevin Gossman and the splitter. It's like learning how these guys are doing all that is just mind blowing. Because, when I pitched, I was just happy to throw it over the plate, but what these guys are able to do with finger placements and pressure, and I'm going to turn, it's like all this crazy stuff that I never got the coaching on how to do that. But it's just, that's why I'm so fascinated with listening on how they're doing what they're doing. Because last year it's just like, okay, here's a tool. Oh, by the way, you can't do this with it. Oh, you can't do that with it. And never mind, give me that tool back. Here's this one. Try this one. And please go out and perform at a high level.
Right. It's crazy.
Last guy I'll mention, just because it's worth the meme. A guy that was a former top 10 pitcher going outside the top 50 starters that had a strong-ish finish to his season was Patrick Corbin. So I've taken the gamble a few times. I'm not going to overload my team with him, but he's another guy that I've taken
in a 15-team draft and hold. I would take a chance on Patrick.
Right,
exactly. Why not?
Yeah, right at that point. All right. Next question is John Means or Patrick Sandoval. And I'll start with you on this one, Jason. And this is from Marty Tallman, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago.
Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Honestly, my days and
last week.
Might have been last.
I think it was last week. It was because Carlos was 2 weeks ago, so Marty was just on last week.
It's been a long week.
Yes, he had the best hat so far. He had the fedora, and he had the best hat. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go Sandoval because I'm even with the back issues that you and Paul did a good job of talking about in last episode. it's still a better situation. And until John Means is relocated out of Baltimore, and yes, I know they're moving the fences and whatnot, but John Means still has the Baltimore bullpen behind him, and he still has the questionable defense behind him, and they can put up runs and get run support, but he's still pitching in the AL East. He still has a bad bullpen behind him, even though there are some components of it I like. The non-A bullpen is really bad, and so that's where I have my concerns, whereas Sandoval's got better supporting cast around him. So even with the back trouble, I'm still going to go Sandoval there. I've had the opportunity to draft Means in a number of leagues, and I've passed on him every time. I just can't get he pitches in Baltimore with that supporting cast out of my head. I'd rather take a chance. In one league, in fact, I think I took Tyler Wells before I even touched Means, because saves are there. But yeah, John doesn't mean business for me. People keep repeating that, and I'm like, yeah, it's still bad business overall. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. He gets the edge. Sandoval gets the edge for me just because of Means division. I like both their stuff. They both have really good changeups, but just a harder division makes him difficult to take him. And then Sandoval, I think the only thing maybe you have to worry about is the Angels probably going to go 6-man rotation again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's probably going to see fewer starts than Means if Means stays healthy. But again, I think the harder division kind of offsets that. So I think I would lean Sandoval as well.
I see where you guys are going, and I have them like literally back to back. I've got Means at 56 and Sandoval at 57. The combination of that 6-man rotation and the back, though, is the reason I have him just a little bit lower. If I knew he was healthy coming into the season, and that made, once we do get spring training, if he is pitching and pitching well, I may change my mind on this. But especially when we're talking about starters that late in a draft, I want innings. I want guaranteed innings. I feel like I'm going to get them from John Means, and hopefully, the Orioles decide to trade John Means.
That's another guy, along with the Jose Ramirez. I'll tell you, in the AFL Writers League, some guy named Paul Sporer took Sandoval.
Never heard of him.
14-6, and then Derek Van Riper took John Means 16-3.
Yeah, I'll take that 2-round discount, but Paul, I think Paul's a little. Yeah, we talked about it.
That was Paul's second starter. He took Jack Flaherty as his first starter. I'm sorry, as his third starter. He took Jack Flaherty in the 4th. He took Lance Lynn in the 6th. And then he took Sandoval in the 14th. After he has Clase and the older Barlow brother, Scott, as his 2 reliever. But yeah, he took Sandoval as his SP3.
I hope that offense is really nice.
He led it off with Albies and Trout, so that's always a good start. And then Alonso, then Fran Mill, Grandal, Akil Baddoo, of course, Justin Turner, Brendan Rodgers, O'Neill Cruz. So it's a Paul team. He's got a lot of risk in there.
Sounds like he needs more speed.
Yeah, that team is not good. I like a lot of those players.
That team is not good.
That team is not good.
It's a Paul team for sure. But he's got a lot of pitching risk because his SP's4 is Oscar Noah. So it's like,
oh wow,
yeah, he needs an inning source. He needs somebody to give him some innings outside of Lynn.
Yeah,
that team is going to be a problem. I'm on record right now.
Can't wait until he listens. I can't wait for the text when he listens to this episode.
I'll have to send him the audio. So. All right. Last question is thoughts on Logan Webb, Charlie Morton, and Yu Darvish. Are they viable number 2 starters? And that is from @ENK917 on Twitter. Simione, what are your thoughts? Are these 3 guys viable number 2s?
Yeah, I think you can work around all of them. I personally like Webb the most out of all of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, in 17 starts last year, he allowed 2 earned runs or less. I just was very impressed with Webb. Charlie Morton, I've been a big fan of him and telling everyone to take him just because a lot of people aren't really looking at him, even though he had a higher K-walk last year than Giolito and Walker Buehler. Darvish, I can see you building around him. But I think he's definitely the riskier pick of the bunch. He just scares me. really know why. That's sort of like more of a gut feeling for me. But if you have him as your 2 and then say you like back him up with some, high floor guys, I couldn't really blame you for it.
Jason, are these guys SP2s for you?
They would be, yes, especially Darvish. I want back in. I continue to get sniped every time I try to get him. I end up getting sniped, and it's annoying me. So I had in the aforementioned Riders League, I took Jazz Chisholm at 6-13, and I was all queued up to take Yu Darvish at 7-3, and Ray Murphy and Brent Hershey took Yu Darvish at 7-1. Just like they took Elias Diaz when I had them all queued up here way back in round 18. So they have twice snaked me, but I was all set to take Darvish as my SP2 after Aaron Nola. And I ended up going Eovaldi the next round. So yes, I'm putting my money where my mouth is in saying that. But yes, that's where I wanted to get Darvish there. And that would have been pick 93. I know his ADP is hanging right around the top 100, but again, I really thought I could get him there. And in fact, those 2 guys took Morton and Darvish back to back. And that's really, I remember sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to take Chisholm here because I really like Chisholm. One of these starting pitchers is going to make it back to me, because at that point, Carabel had already taken Gossman and Barrios. So I ruled him out. And then Ray and Brent had already had Hendricks and Peralta. So I figured I'm pretty safe in getting one of these pitchers to come back. And they both went to the same team in 4 picks in between. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And so I audible and went to Dalton Varsho, who I've never taken a catcher that early, but I was like, you know what, let me try this out and see where this goes. But yeah, I really wanted one of those 2 guys as my SP2 and lost them both. Webb was already gone by then. I'm trying to look. Webb went in the 5th. He went early in the 5th. Todd Zola, 2 picks after I had taken Will Smith, the closer. In the first part of round 5, because closers were just running as they have been in all these things. But yeah, I really wanted Morton or Darvish, never expecting both of them would go in between my picks there.
If we're talking about a 15-team league, and it works for what I'm about to say, so I'm going to say in a 15-team league, I have none of these guys ranked as a number 2 starter. I have one of them ranked as a number 1 starter. That's Logan Webb. And I have both Darvish and Morton ranked as number 3 starters in my ranks. Morton, it's because of the injury. Like he broke his effing leg. Now, if he comes... but it's still a leg. Like I can't remember which leg it was, but you either need to push off of it or land on it. I need to see him on a mound throwing before. Now he will rise in my ranks. Like he will be an SP2 in my ranks once we see him throwing in spring training. That he looks fine. But I mean, he broke his fucking leg. I mean, that's I'm not gonna take a guy as my SP2 coming off a broken leg if I haven't seen him throw yet. So Darvish is a guy, man. He's such a hard guy to kind of figure out. Like he had real ups and downs throughout the season. He's older. He has a long injury track record. I love the upside that because I think he could theoretically be an SP1 by the end of the season. And if everything goes right, he could also be an SP5. And so I prefer him as an SP3 just to have a strong foundation and base. But I understand why people are taking him where they are. So that is going to wrap us up for this episode. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry about my dog bark.
I have one last question. What's on the game table behind Michael?
It's a lot of games. It's like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Galaga.
That's all I need to hear. Galaga, my all-time
games.
Favorite game, because I saw the stand-up in the back years ago on Knotgraphs when Bradley Woodrum was writing there and not part of the Miami Marlins front office. He wrote an article about my brother who built an arcade game, he built the whole casing, took an old computer, ran some. I think he's got a Linux simulator, but he's got like 800 games in that sucker. And we would play NBA Jams, we play RBI baseball. Like he's got all these things in there. He got them.
That's awesome.
And I've always wanted to have him make me one. I just never get around to it. But the game table, because last night my daughter had a birthday party we went to, and the place had a giant Galaga game. And I was like, and then while we were waiting for them, we went to another place and they had a Galaga game inside. And I told my wife, I was like, if I start playing this, it's like game over. Because usually when I sit down to play Galaga, I set the high score. I'm really good at it. Okay. I didn't want her to be like, we're on a date and you're over here just spending 45 minutes on Galaga. It is what it is. But yeah, I want to get a game table with Galaga or a stand up because it is my all time. I even have a shirt. Because there's a place in Raleigh that has Boxcar Willie, and they have full bar arcade, but it's got all 80s and 90s. That's what it has. And so I'll go in there and be like, okay, playing Galaga. And
you gotta go to One Up Arcade. You ever hear of them? One Up Arcade.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where the Mortal Kombat's from. This is from something else, but
nice.
They have Galaga and stuff there too.
Yeah, well, one of these years, it's on my Christmas wish list every year, but other stuff takes over. But I'm a man. I'm turning 50 this year. Maybe this year I'll get Galaga.
Michael, remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug your guide and anything else you got going on.
Yeah, you follow us on Twitter at SPStreamer, website SPStreamer.com, which is where you get the draft kit tomorrow in our shop. Mainly right there. I do also write for Rotographs about once a week as well.
There you go. Jason, where can you be reached? What are you working on?
At RotoWire Collect Calls column that comes out every Wednesday. I'm finalizing the bold prediction series. So I'm on the last one, the NL West. And so the names that I have this year for the NL West, Josh Rojas, Martin, as we talked about earlier, Diaz, Robert Stevenson, again, Mookie Betts, who I really don't like this year, and you're going to have to read to say why. Heaney, who I do like, and we've talked about it. Luis Campusano, Yu Darvish, Evan Longoria, and Camilo Doval. Those are the 10 predictions, but I now have 30 hitters, 30 pitchers as of Wednesday out there, so people can use it or use it against me or thank me for what I've done. So we'll see how that goes. Last year I had a really good year for the bold prediction series. Probably the best hit rate that I've had in recent years. And I didn't change that. I didn't make things easier. I went out there and put some things out there, and we'll see how it goes. But I don't play it safe in these.
You had a pretty good bold predictions year last year too, which was nice. I think Cedric Mullins really helped out a lot. So you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can read the majority of my works over on Rotographs along with Michael, where I'm writing 4 to 5 days a week at this point. And you can hear me on this podcast, the TGFBI podcast, which will have an episode released Monday morning, or actually probably really late tonight. And then also on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast with Dave McDonald. That will wrap us up. Thank you all for listening, and thank you all for watching. Those of you who have been watching live or watch later on YouTube.
Go Bengals.
We will talk to you in a few days.